Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Rustamova, the founder of Your Power of Health, Central Park Medical, You Are the Angel, nonprofit organizations, and so forth. I'm OBGYN, working in New York full-time, and I'm also a founder of Wellness and big proponent and big advocate for longevity, wellness, and fusing longevity mind, body, and spirit together. So not only the science of longevity, I'm merging it together with Eastern traditions and ancient traditions and trying to create one big, beautiful amalgamation. And that is my program. And today we have our beautiful guest, Ana Herrera, she is the founder of Hormone University, and you could check her website, hormoneuniversity.com. She is the one who was on the leading edge from the very beginning in terms of the hormone replacement therapies and searching for natural ways of helping women through natural hormones, bioidentical hormones, or natural activators of your own hormones in your body by using natural ingredients. So we're going to talk to Ana today about youthfulness, about hormones, about longevity, about the health span and lifespan, about how can we stay young, healthy, beautiful, active, vital, longer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shanos. It's such a pleasure to talk to you, to have this conversation. 80% of women go through hormonal imbalances, and that means the majority of the population really don't know what to do and get so confused about what to do. And as we all know, we want to have a better quality of life. So longevity, to me at least, it means having a much better quality of life for as long as possible. And what is very interesting for all of us is that if we think about how human beings have progressed, right? We used to live up to 31 years old in the 1800s. We now live on average 73 years old. So I would love to have this conversation with you, Shanos, as the expert on longevity. My thing is hormones and hormonal balance, but and that has a huge correlation, right, between longevity and hormones. But I really would love for you, Dr. Shanos, to share with us your wisdom, your expertise.
The lifespan of 32 years expanding to 70 to 75 years. And by the way, now it's expanded even more. The latest statistics is actually showing 88 years. So we're even growing, even living longer. But we're looking at 300, 200 years timeline. But if you look at the timeline, bigger timeline, say thousands of years, according to ancient scriptures, that's the only statistics and the only facts, so to speak, from ancient scriptures, then you would see that lifespan was actually much longer than 100 years. In a Bible, for example, they say the human body has life warranty for 226 years. So meaning that if you really take care of your body, you can easily live vital life for that period of time. But in that case, if you ask why it happened, like what happened to us, why we lived longer and then we started living shorter and then we live longer. And, it has a lot to do with environmental changes that happen, cyclical changes. It's not necessarily that, created on purpose, or it just happens cyclically. Life happens here, and we had ice ages and we have so many other things that did change the landscape and did change the way we eat, the way we survive, and so forth. So by saying that, I'm trying to convey the idea that we designed to live longer. And we do have this also mental thing, knowing that, like, for example, if you look at the world records for example, in athletics, right? In any athletics, there's a specific set world record. And then if someone breaks it, then we start passing that world record, and then we take another. And yes, it takes a long time, but then next thing you know, this running 5K and finishing in a certain period of time was the record 50 years ago. And now almost anybody who is trained does that, not necessarily professional athletes. Okay. And pretty soon, whatever we have records today, world records established by today's athletes, maybe 100 years from now, it will be norm, because that's how we're also evolving. Okay. So all the main component here, as you see, mental, knowing that it's actually possible. We can actually do it, because the most common mentality is statistically 72 years. Okay, now it's 88 years. And we kind of program our subconscious saying that that's the timeline and this is how it is, but it's not. So if you say what is number one when you wake up in the morning, is this. We were just talking before we started our conversation about how the day going, and you said I had my beautiful yoga. Amazing. You know, you took care of your blood flow and you took care of your peace in your mind. After this, I'm going to go paddleboarding. Amazing. This is what we need. Movements and happy feeling. It's very important, especially feeling optimistic. So there was a study on people who lived 100 years and longer, and they tried to establish what is the common denominator for these people. What is the driving force that allows them to live 100 years and longer? Is that food? Is that smoking, drinking? Is that having sex, not having sex? All these parameters. And when they looked, some drank Coca-Cola, some ate meat, some didn't eat meat. Some had sex, some didn't have sex. Some exercised, some did not exercise at all. But one common denominator was feeling optimistic. Optimism and feeling happy.
And what are your thoughts, Dr. Shanos, about loneliness and relationships? There is a lot of talk about longevity, the relationship of longevity, and not having that loneliness and having meaningful relationships and purpose in life. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, because humans are, we are communal creatures. We need to interact. When the baby is born, and if you put the baby in isolated environment, the baby is not going to be developed, fully developed, right? So baby has to interact with nature, baby has to interact with animals and humans as well. So we need to have that connection. We need to be with someone, with a companion, whether it's your love partner or whether it's your good friend, whether it's just someone who you work with, someone that you could, or people in the community when you walk around, just by interacting and talking to them, you keep your life going. And again, another study showed how dramatically a lifespan shortens if you take elderly people from their homes and put them in community homes. Their lifespan actually shortens because it's drastic change. Although you say, oh, they're going to be communicating, but most of the time it's just that environment when they so used to be tied in, talk, communicate, love, and interact, and you change in the environment, that adaptability is not there anymore. That's another very important factor. So then they perish quicker. So number one is optimism. It's number one. Okay. Feeling good, feeling positive, feeling optimistic, looking forward, moving forward, not looking back. That's number one. Mindset. But then number two is also developing adaptability of your cells. And that is the most important thing. If you have your cells adaptable to any stressors, you will survive. So the evolution, when they talk about evolution, they say that the strongest, the fittest, the one that survived, it's the one that was adaptable, adaptable, that was survived. And when I say cellular, because everything happens on the cells, in the cell, on the surface of the cell, inside of the cell is the most important unit of human structure, or any mammal structure, any life structure, because life starts from the cell. You and I, we were just one cell in an ovary, another cell in the sperm, and then the cell started dividing, and now we're sitting here, some years later, trillions of cells communicating with each other, functioning, and so forth. And if you really watch these two functions, your mental state and adaptability of the physical level, those two are important. But then the third factor is also, I think, your spiritual position, belief, which is also comes with the mental health as well, or mental state. But being connected to the power then higher than you, or understanding that you have that power flowing through you and using that power, is also important thing. So these are three main pillars to live not just longer. The goal is not to live longer. The goal is to be vital, to enjoy, to really go through 100-something years, really enjoy your life. So to me, these are the three pillars.
Quality of life, absolutely. So we were talking about that holistic view of those three pillars. How would you continue with your advice and your wisdom, Dr. Shanos, in terms of like our everyday things? What should we be thinking about also if, we're all thinking, oh my gosh, we don't want to get to menopause, right? I had surgical menopause, I had no other choice. But for those women who are at that stage where they know that relatively soon they're going to get to menopause, and therefore there is a decline of, as we know, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, what are the things that you recommend for these women to delay as much as possible that process so that we can maintain those hormone levels as best as we can?
So hormones, first of all, we should understand how important hormones are.
Right.
Hormones are our messenger systems. Hormones are keepers of life. That's what hormones are. And I'm not talking about just estrogen, progesterone. I'm talking about all the hormones that our body produces. And our estrogen and progesterone, testosterone, also depends on the hormones that we produce in our brain, we produce in our thyroid, we produce in our adrenals. It's a beautiful orchestra between those, and dance between those hormonal systems that we have, endocrine systems that we have in our body. So what important is with understanding the hormones and how to not delay, but at least to support. Because when you say menopause, except of course surgical, in case if everything is removed, but in the physiological states, even if you stop having your period, doesn't mean you stop producing your hormones. You still have specific tissues in your ovaries that still there producing those hormones. They are. It's just not enough for you to cycle. And the amount of estrogen start going lower and lower and lower and lower. And then by a certain age, you start producing almost none. So the idea is to delay and prolong that period after the menopause. Like when you just hit menopause, or you're just starting your perimenopause or whatever, to prolong this period and allow your body to produce as much as possible, and activate those centers, those pathways in your body, biochemical pathways that will continue production of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, and other hormones as well. Now, when we say perimenopause, automatically people think it's probably going to be around 45, 47, so forth. No, perimenopause, believe it or not, starts in your 30s. That's how early it starts.
Important message here, very important message, because that's when we need to be conscious of it. And prevention is the new medicine, as you and I always mention, right? Prevention is the new medicine. And this is one of the reasons why we're doing this encounter together, and also why we're going to be doing a special and exciting panel in New York City, so that we transmit that message of what can you do to prevent already when you're in your 30s. So this is great.
Yes. So why in our 30s? Because it's just the physiology. You and I and other girls, we were born with a certain amount of eggs.
Right.
Okay? Come to this world with a certain amount of eggs. And then we start menstruating. When you start menstruating, not necessarily you start ovulating immediately. You start probably ovulating in a couple of years into your menstrual life. So let's say you start menstruating age of 14, 15. I mean, ovulating.
Ovulate, yeah.
14, 15. If you started menstruating at age of 11, 12 or so. Then every time when you ovulate, the eggs that you brought to this life, you ovulate. That egg is gone. You don't make any eggs, right? So as you're going, imagine from age of 15 until age of 30, 35, this is when majority of our ovarian reserve is getting depleted. And the reason is also survival. It's rooted in a deep survival mechanism back in the days when we used to live in the caves, and when we used to, like, even after caves period, during winter times, we would preserve and not to get pregnant. And then as we get older, we knew that the body would not survive. Body had to overcome more. So you had to preserve your vitality and not to ovulate anymore. You see, it's all about conserving energy. It's a survival mechanism. It's a just physiology. So then at the age of 31, 32, for some people, it depends how much of hormones you brought in your basket, in your ovaries, from your eggs. Some people brought this much, some people brought a lot. So from the age of 32, 34, 35, this is when we start seeing changes. So between 30, like if you're a young girl, between age of 14 to 20, you probably ovulate 80% of the time. You don't even ovulate every month. That's also physiology. Okay. Then from 30 to 35, it's a gray zone when your ovulation rate from 80 drops down to 60, maybe 70, maybe 50. Depends on your ovarian reserve, what you brought to this world. And then after 35, it dramatically starts to go down. You see, again, your body is conserving your eggs, and at the same time, it's conserving your hormonal energy, hormonal potential, because it knows that even after you're done with the childbearing, you need to continue that function.
That's right.
So that's why we say perimenopause starts in the 30s. After 35, like for some people, late 30s, for some people, even early 30s. It depends on your lifestyle, depends on your genetics. There's so many other factors also play a role. But in general, the root, the physiology is laying into what is there is to preserve your function, hormonal function, the longer. Try to keep it.
Absolutely.
Understanding this, now you know that your body is going through changes. You need to support that. And we're not saying you have to be on hormone replacement therapy. Absolutely not. Because once you start using hormones, exogenous hormones, we call them, meaning that hormones that come from outside, your body shuts down and stops producing your own hormones. We're talking about natural things, natural activators that you take that will activate your body's pathways to build your own natural hormones, to stimulate your own natural hormones so you would last longer. It's almost like when you have a car, one thing when you don't go and don't inspect your car, don't change the oil, don't maintain it, and just keep running it in the same distance, your car probably will break faster than someone else's car who regularly checks the oil, maintains the engine, and takes care of it. That car will last longer and look longer. I mean, look younger.
Right.
So, same thing is our body. So you have to start young. You have to start young. And these PMSs that we get, it's also a sign of hormonal imbalance. And it doesn't mean that you absolutely have to go on birth control pills. Birth control pill is quick fix. I'm OBGYN. I prescribe birth control pills. I'm not against them. It's just not the first choice.
Right. Exactly. And I believe that it has been overprescribed, right? So you have acne, here is the birth control. And effectively, as you say, the body is so nature and our bodies are so intelligent. So if they perceive that we're adding hormones, they're going to start not producing so much hormones, right? So this is again, a very, very important message. It's a quick fix. It's a Band-Aid in a way, right? So,
and it also creates this negative loop, like you said. It
right.
stops it stops your production of hormones. Correct.
And I read a relatively recent study from 2019 about the effects of birth control in your pituitary gland and the effects of inflammation there, which is mind-blowing to me, right? That just the birth control can do something like that. So it's really important, and that's why we're so well connected, Dr. Shanos, is because effectively of science, medication specifically is a great way to help us, but sometimes it's not the first option to take. So I love that message, and that's the reason why we created hormone-free products to help support that stimulation of progesterone and estrogen and testosterone. So I'm glad you're mentioning that.
Yes, yes. And also PMS, for example, like speaking of natural things, PMS almost became a normal thing. Like if you have PMS, that's considered normal. But PMS is the language that your body is trying to tell you what's missing in your body. If you really listen to it, what kind of cravings you have. Are you having cravings for certain foods? That means it's not that you have to eat that particular food. It's the element in that food that your body is craving for. Or
Right.
if you're craving for a specific like savory foods, that means it could be your adrenals. So you need to support your adrenals again with the natural ways. So understanding your body, it's very, very important. And how to activate your natural resources in your body. So you could not only balance your hormones, because your vitality is not just hormones. Vitality is your hormone, how to produce your own NAD, how to produce your own glutathione. You see, we'll talk about your genetics. We will explain everything. We basically will take you under the hood of your body and say, you see this engine, you see this, you see that, that's how it works. So it will make you education, not only educational, but it also will be, you will be educated consumer, meaning that you're not going to be just jumping on any cream or any vitamin or anything. You will have some knowledge. You will have this precision.
Right.
Instead of just blindfolded saying, I'll take my vitamins, I take care of myself. Are you really taking the right vitamins? Are you really taking or eating food according to your genetics? It's a much deeper conversation that needs to take place. And, even hormones, like when we talk about, not hormones, but let's say you take your magnesium, you're already stimulating your estrogen production. You're helping with progesterone, right? And you're taking your vitamin D, same thing. You're providing building material for your estrogen and testosterone and progesterone, correct? But besides that, what you do also by taking these vitamins go exactly on the specific genes and open it up. For example, my patient asked me, which magnesium is the best? It depends on your genetics. For some people, you must be on biglycinates. And for some people, you could be okay on other types of magnesium.
You started talking about genetics, and I don't think that there is enough focus on this these days. Of course, there are genetic testings, and people have used companies like 23andMe and so on, but I do believe that there is something where we need to look further into this and our predisposition according to our genetics. I mean, when we go to a normal doctor visit, they ask you like some basic questions, right? Anyone in your family has had cancer? What type of cancer? But that's like very, in a way, it stays in a superficial layer, right? So how do we go deeper? And Dr. Shanos, how do you go deeper into genetics, and how do you apply it to your practice?
Yeah, so genetics, you can break down the genes for many groups, different groups, and then use them accordingly, right? So let's say we have 25,000 genes in our body, and a specific group of genes are responsible for, let's say, work of your nervous system and your adrenals, for example. Another group is responsible for methylation process. Another group is responsible for, let's say, glutathione processing and glutathione synthesis, right? So, and then there's another group that is responsible if it gets mutated and activated or deactivated. depends on the gene, then specifically responsible for specific diseases. My theory is it's not the disease that we have to focus on, it's what process takes place in the cell during that mutation. Because disease is the end result. How come we have BRCA test positive patients, high risk for not just ovarian, but breast, and also, even if you remove breast and ovaries, they still may develop peritoneal cancer. Like there's something going on with that gene. So it's disease is just the end result. What is happening in the cell when that particular gene gets activated? When it's mutated and gets activated, what happens? Another question also, why is that patients with BRCA, 80% of them are at risk of getting disease. And there's a 20% they not. What makes that 20% not to develop that disease? It's a process. It's a process that happens in the cell.
Right.
So we're looking in the wrong direction. That's my opinion.
And Dr. Shanos, my last question is, and I'm so excited, by the way, that we're going to be touching all of these points in depth with your knowledge and your wisdom and your experience. And that is a hormone that fascinates me, and it's cortisol, and what cortisol can do if we get cortisol poisoning, the inflammation that it can provoke, the consequences of cortisol poisoning, which unfortunately we are in this phase of life where most of us are constantly go under high levels of stress. So would you please explain a little bit more about what can we do and what happens in the body when we have cortisol poisoning?
It's important to know what happens, and then you will decide what to do. So what happens in the body, cortisol, and I like how you said poisoning, because cortisol itself is not a bad hormone.
Absolutely.
We need cortisol. Cortisol is important for us to, when we wake up because of cortisol, okay? It makes you wake up, it makes you open your eyes, it makes you to go and want to do things. So that's cortisol, and gives you energy. But there's something happens when we have overproduction of cortisol. And why is that? It happens, like you mentioned, inflammation, right? So when we have this either physical stress, or when we have this physical, mental, emotional, whatever stress,
anxiety, right?
Yeah, sleep deprivation, whatever it is, it's a stress. That stress creates oxidative stress in the cell. Again, we're going back into the process. What is happening in the cell? In the cell, you start producing more waste material and collection of that waste material in the cell. And the more waste material in the cell you have, the more inflamed and unhappy that cell looks. And that's what we call inflammation. And the longer the cell is in that inflammatory state, that lifespan of the cell is
going to be shortened, of course.
And cell gets destroyed. And this is what happens. Cortisol increases your cholesterol. How? Because when you have cortisol, you create this oxidative stress. The stress destroys the cell, and the cell wall consists of good cholesterol. But then when it gets destroyed, the debris of that cell wall float around. We call it bad cholesterol. You see? And then again, bad cholesterol will put you on statins, which again, in some cases, maybe there's a place for that, but not for everyone. You see? So again, it comes with the genetics. They say if you have high cholesterol, you can die from heart attack. Is it really? So going back to genetics, there are 3 types of genes. And the first gene is responsible for heart attack. There are 3 types of genes that are responsible for heart attack. The first one is responsible for inflammation, oxidative stress in the endothelial cells of the coronary vessels. That's one gene. The second gene is responsible for plaque formation. And the third one is responsible for blood clotting formation. So the heart attack can happen from if you have inflammation in the coronary vessels and they create coronary spasm and coronary plaque or whatever it is, and then you die, or coronary plaque that everybody knows about, or it could be a blood clot, just clogs the vessel and you have a heart attack.
Mm.
So that if you carrying the gene that is responsible for endothelial inflammation and you go on statins, you're not really helping yourself. That's why important to know the process and the genetics, what is happening in the cell. So cortisol, it basically, the more inflammation you have, the more cortisol you start producing because it's a stress. Now this is stress hormone, it's a response, and it becomes vicious cycle. And now you're producing more cortisol, and then more oxidative stress, more inflammation, and just keep going. So how to break this vicious cycle? We're so used to, oh, if you have this problem, take this vitamin, take this herb. For cortisol, for adrenals, you have to do a little more. Just taking supplements is not enough. Things like cortisol decreasing activities like yoga, breath work, meditation, acupuncture, tai chi, cold plunges, cryotherapies, all these things, massages, this is also need to be incorporated in your life, day-to-day life. You see? And by the way, I'm going back again to genetics. In your genetics, there is a genetic predispositions to specific disorders of cortisol production. And for example, in my thing, I have a problem with BDNF hormone production that also can affect production of cortisol. If I don't have enough of BDNF, I produce more cortisol to compensate.
Can
And
you
as
explain what that is, BDNF?
BDNF is the hormone that we produce in our brain, and it usually happens if you sweat. The best way to produce it is when you sweat, when you exercise, not just doing regular yoga, but let's say hot yoga, not just like walking, but running when you
Strength
really
training and
training, not just just laying down in the sun, but going in the sauna, infrared sauna, and sweat really nicely. This is when I help my genetics told me that this is going to be the best thing. So my sauna is my how do you call it, therapy. Okay,
right.
This is my
Treatment for you, right?
exactly. It's good for everybody, but I could, some people could do sauna or do cold plunges or something else. I have to have my sauna. I have to have my sweating according to my genetics. That's why it's important to know what you consist of. So you would know which buttons to push or not to push.
I love that. I love that. And you mentioned these therapies and these lifestyle strategies, right? And I would love to add what you mentioned right at the beginning, and that's mindset is the filter on how we see life, how we see problems, and turning them into potentially an opportunity when we have something, a challenge, right? And we all go through that. We all go through issues and problems and stressful situations. And it's how you position that. I think that really helps to lower those cortisol levels and help yourself with that. And exercise is so important.
Yeah, I have a comment about that. Every time when I check my patients' hormones and cortisol is elevated, which is very, very common problem, they go, "What's cortisol?" I say, "Well, we call it stress hormone." "Oh, that's right. I go through my stress. I have so much stress. I got so much stress." And then I say, "Well, it's a fancy word, but translation is I'm reactive to external world too much." That's what it is. Just like you said,
Yeah.
if something happens, how much of emotional response I'm giving. And every time when I have a lot of emotional response, this is when I produce a lot of cortisol. And things like yoga, exercise, and other things will help you to regulate that and not to have that much, but also the mindset to remember. Like
Right.
I always tell my patients, if you have this situation and you're reacting, just ask yourself, especially those who come with ovarian cyst and pelvic pain and this and that, and because of cortisol production, I tell them, just stop and ask yourself, is this situation really worth of your ovaries? Is this really worth of your vagina, your cervix, your ovaries, your thyroid, whatever it is it really worth? No. Move on. Are you really going to, all of us will die, and one day we will be in our bed, and we all going to go through what we've done in our life, what we had in our life. It's just everybody goes through this, right? Are you going to remember this moment when you're going to die, at the moment of you dying? Probably not, unless if it's really something bad, which happen that often, fortunately, in our life. Most of the time, it's a little stupid things that makes us react and create this snowball effect. You're
It's the
absolutely right.
ego. It's the ego too, right?
Absolutely right. Yes. So that's why spirituality, whether it's religion, whether it's just believing in something, helps a lot when you start working on your spiritual self-growth. You must include that in your in your therapy. And that's what my program is all about: your physical, your emotional, and your spiritual being. And that is the whole holistic approach to human body to
This
prevent.
is brilliant, Dr. Shanos. We need more doctors like you. So
Well, there's a lot of doctors are coming out of this, and we're all realizing it. And I think the future is bright.
excellent. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Shanos. I can't wait to do this in person.
Can't wait. Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye.